Hi everyone, welcome back to MovieJube. I am back with some more lore for Lord of the Rings / Tolkien, and this time, like I mentioned previously, I'm going to be checking out the Witch-king, and I'm super excited to learn more about him and the Ringwraiths in general. So if you're excited as well, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And as always, I'm going to leave the link to the channel of Men of the West. That's what we're watching to start with, and yeah, that will all be in the description and the pinned comment. So yeah. We're starting with the Witch-king of Angmar, epic character history. So let's go.
Come not between the Nazgûl and his prey, or he will slay thee in thy turn. He will bear thee away to the houses of lamentation, beyond all darkness, where thy flesh shall be devoured, and thy shriveled mind be left naked to the lidless eye.
Damn!
A sword rang as it was drawn. Do what you will, but I will hinder it if I may. Hinder me? Thou fool. No living man may hinder me. End quote. Hey guys, Yoisting here with a requested video on one of everyone's favorite Doombringers, the Witch-king of Angmar.
Woo!
Born at an unknown date in the Second Age of Middle-earth,
Okay.
the man who would later be known as the Witch-king of Angmar likely lived in Númenor at the beginning of his life. It is speculated by fans of the Legendarium that he comes from Númenor, but it is said in Akallabeth, in the Silmarillion, that 3 of the Nazgûl were of the great Númenorian race, and, in my opinion, Sauron would have had his greatest lieutenant be one of these 3.
Yeah, that makes sense.
As the other men of Middle-earth, known as middlemen, were considered lesser in strength and intellect, in comparison to the Númenorians. The Witch-king, or the Lord of the Nazgûl, is first seen in Middle-earth in the year 2251 of the Second Age.
Okay.
This was already after his kingship and mortal life, and when he was given his Ring of Power during this time or after his emergence. He was given one of the 9 rings of power for mortal men, and thus the former king that we knew nothing about sealed his fate to Sauron's service and openly announced his loyalty to Sauron. He had the appearance
so he was
of
a king
wraith,
as
so
man
he was invisible
as well.
But he cloaked himself in black robes, and had fiery eyes with an iron crown that he wore beneath his hood.
Damn.
The Lord of the Nazgûl helped Sauron's conquests after his betrayal of the elves and dwarves, until the year 3262 of the Second Age, when King Ar-Pharazôn took a host of men from Númenor and captured Sauron. Sauron was captured by his own will, and this was his plan to take down Númenor. It can be assumed that in Sauron's absence from Middle-earth for the next 57 years, the Lord of the Nazgûl ruled in Mordor as a steward of sorts until his master's return.
Yeah, as like a steward, yeah.
When Sauron did return in the year 3319 of the Second Age, he came back disembodied, but with the remains of his power and the One Ring, he again took shape, but he lost his power to shapeshift, as most, if not all of the Maiar have the ability to do so.
Damn.
Now, that didn't mean the destruction of his essence or anything, but he was able to go under different guises before this, such as Anatar the Gift Lord, among others. But now, after his destruction at Númenor, after Númenor was sunk beneath the seas, and he was drowned along with many other people, he lost the ability to do this.
Yeah, okay.
Anyways, Sauron donned his black armor after his return, and compiled his forces for another war.
Which is such cool
with the
armor.
Free Peoples. During the War of the Last Alliance, the Lord of the Nazgûl served his master very well, helping in his campaigns and even possibly aiding in the taking of Minas Ithil, causing Isildur to flee for his life.
Wow.
And it is interesting to think that the Lord of the Nazgûl may have helped with that, because he would later rule Minas Ithil when it would be renamed Minas Morgul, but again, I'll get to that later.
Okay.
He served even until Sauron's defeat on the slopes of Mount Doom. After this, the Nazgûl and their master went into hiding. The end of the Second Age and the beginning of the Third came and went, and finally, after waiting with Sauron to consolidate forces, power, and to give him time to look for the One Ring, the Nazgûl and their master returned. Sauron built and occupied Dol Guldur around the year 1100 of the Third Age, and the wise thought of the possibility of the return of the Nazgûl, and that they were ruling the castle, but they didn't even dare to think that Sauron had returned.
Yikes.
And Sauron does keep the secret for a long time. At this time, the Nazgûl hadn't been seen for over 1,000 years.
Oh, wow.
And in the year 1300 of the Third Age, the Lord of the Nazgûl took action again against the Free Peoples, though he didn't reveal himself as one of the 9, yet. He had the city of Carn Dûm built in the far reaches of the northeast of Eriador.
Damn.
And he ruled Angmar as its Witch-king. You'll notice that I haven't said Witch King since the start of this video because up until this point in the timeline, he wasn't known as the Witch King yet. But it is the events succeeding his return here that make him so memorable and terrifying and known as the Witch King.
Cool.
He built armies of evil men, orcs, trolls, and many other terrifying creatures. And he planned now to wage war with the weaker of the two kingdoms of the Dunedain, Arnor. At this time, Arnor was falling apart and was split into 3 different kingdoms, Arthedain, Cardolan, and Rudar. They were also nearing civil war. If you want to learn more about these kingdoms of Arnor, I have another video for you. Link in the description below. In the year 1409 of the Third Age, the Witch King openly attacked the kingdoms. He first brought down Rudar, as he had easily corrupted many of its people that were hillmen, and overthrew any Dunedain rule. Then, using Rudar's help, and the might of his forces, he overthrew Amun-Sul, or Weathertop, as it was later known. And the Witch King attacked Cardolan for many years, but Cardolan was able to repel and hold their own for a long time.
Good for them.
But eventually, plagues that infested both Cardolan and Gondor, sent by the Witch King, and Angmar's foul spirits that rose wights from the Barrow Downs, combined with his many armies, overtook Cardolan. And then, the Witch King turned his sights toward Fornost, the last bastion of the north, and the only hope for Arthedain, Arnor's true kingdom, to survive. But, in 1974 of the Third Age, it too fell to Angmar's might. But the Witch King's victory was short-lived, and Glorfindel, a lord of Rivendell and Gondolin, and Eomer, the prince of Gondor, brought mighty armies from the south and east, and reclaimed Fornost.
Nice.
Though its former glory would be lost until the days of King Elisar. And the host of the Free Peoples beat Angmar on the fields west of Fornost in the Battle of Fornost, and the Witch King fled. It was during this battle that Glorfindel realized the true might of the Witch King, and discovered that he was the lord of the 9 Nazgûl, after the fear of the Witch King made Eomer's horse buck and eject the rider.
Interesting, that's how he figured it out.
And Glorfindel bade Prince Eomer not to pursue him, and Glorfindel said, quote, "Do not pursue him. He will not return to these lands. Far off yet is his doom, and not by the hand of man shall he fall." Even as he said this, the Witch King taunted Prince Eomer and fled. After his defeat in the north, he was still somewhat victorious.
Self-fulfilling prophecy, not by the hand of man.
Remained in ruin, as there were now too few Dunedain to restart the already fractured kingdom. So the remaining men followed Aeronarth as their chieftain of the Dunedain, and they became rangers, fearing to go back to Fornost, calling it the Dead Man's Dyke, and believing it to be haunted. Fear beat the men of the north until Aragorn's time, and that was enough for the Witch King. Now he turned his eyes south to Gondor. He wandered the wild for 5 years, finally coming to Mordor with a plan. He gathered
probably
the other
don't need
8
to eat
Nazgûl
or
to
drink
him
or
and
anything.
laid siege to Minas Ithil once more. The siege lasted 2 years until the Witch King and his forces took the fortress, and men called it Minas Morgul, or the Tower of Black Sorcery. 41 years later, the Morgul Lord, as the Witch King was now called, challenged the newly crowned King of Gondor, Eomer, who had fought at the Battle of Fornost, to a duel. The Steward of Gondor was able to convince the king not to go to this duel, but 7 years later, in the year 2050 of the Third Age, the headstrong king accepted the challenge, and he was never seen again.
So that's what
the
happened to
line of
him.
the kings of Gondor broke, and he was the last until Elisar, whose lineage ran from the Arnorian blood of kings.
Wow.
Quick side note here. In my favorite video game, The Lord of the Rings Online, yes, I am just that much of a nerd, the character of Mordrith, the false king of Angmar, and Gothmog, the commander of the Witch King's forces at the Battle of Pelennor Fields, is in fact the wraith of King Eomer. It's a pretty cool thing that the Lord of the Rings Online team did. See, when King Eomer disappeared into Minas Morgul in this timeline, he was turned into a wraith to serve the Witch King, rather than just killed, like he probably was in the actual timeline of the story. Anyways, after this, the Nazgûl remained dormant in Minas Morgul, leading to the Watchful Peace. Sauron removed himself from Dol Guldur, as he didn't wish to reveal himself yet, and his Ainur, or his spirit, went east, so that no elves or wizards or men could figure out who and what he was.
Okay.
Sauron eventually returns to his forest stronghold, most likely stronger than when he left, and it is assumed that he made plans with his servants to reveal himself, which he eventually does to the White Council in Dol Guldur during the time of Bilbo Baggins' journey to the Lonely Mountain.
Yeah.
After he is driven from Dol Guldur, he returns to Mordor to rebuild Barad-dûr and stake claim to Middle-earth once again. Then the War of the Ring happens, in which the Witch King plays a major part. In the year 3009 of the Third Age, Gollum is captured in Mordor, and he is tortured to reveal what he knows about the ring, and the names Baggins and Shire are revealed. It seems to me that Sauron previously knew that Gollum had the ring at one point, probably through spying on him in Mirkwood, and so Sauron went after him first, to find a lead for the One Ring.
Okay.
Sauron sends the Nazgûl out as Black Riders from Minas Morgul to investigate these leads on the ring.
Shire.
Sauron suspected that Saruman might know where the Shire is, and sent the Lord of the Nazgûl to speak with him at Isengard, as Saruman had already fallen at this point. After this conversation, the riders went far north, speaking with Saruman's spy on the road, to learn the connection between the Baggins family and Hobbiton. The Lord of the Nazgûl doesn't seem to have entered the Shire, but instead set camp at Andraith, south of Bree, and journeyed to the Barrow Downs, awakening more wights of Old Dunedain. This is the same tactic that he had used to crush the kingdom of Cardolan many years before. That is also most likely why Frodo and the other hobbits are attacked by Barrow Wights, as they come after the Witch King had already been there. After hearing that Frodo Baggins had left the Shire, the Nazgûl, led by their lord, almost catch Frodo and the ring a few times. And the Lord of the Black Riders even stabs Frodo on Weathertop with his Morgul knife. That would turn Frodo into a wraith if left unhealed. And if Frodo had turned into a wraith, the ring would have been theirs. The Nazgûl pursue Frodo to the fords of Brunine, and are swept away by Elrond and Gandalf's combined power. They then slowly go back to Mordor and are recloaked to be tasked with the destruction of Gondor. The Witch King takes on his former name, armor and weaponry of old, and oversees the construction of a large army in Minas Morgul. When the army departs to overtake Gondor, Frodo, who he had stabbed 5 months earlier, in hiding sees the Witch King depart on his fell beast, leading the army. The Witch King easily overruns Osgiliath, and brings his armies before Minas Tirith on March 14th, 3019 of the Third Age, and with the help of his commander named Gothmog, and the other 8 Nazgûl,
what a cool
he
name.
nearly brings Gondor to ruin. During the battle, the Witch King laid spells of ruin upon the already evil enchanted Grond, and those spells drove the drivers mad. It was partially because of him that the gates fell so easily, in 3 hits, from the wolf head. The battle is going so well for the Witch King that he is even able to walk through the gateway of Minas Tirith and challenge Gandalf face to face, revealing his hoodless eyes of fire and crown of iron. He ignites his sword, ready to strike the old wizard down and achieve a great victory for Mordor. But he is betrayed by the sound of horns. At dawn, the riders of Rohan charge into battle and turn the tide, not only of the battle itself, but of the war. The Witch King had to retreat to his fell beast and continue the fight outside, even overcoming King Theoden with his beast. But, as his fell steed prepared to feast on the fallen king who was alone with his horse, a loyal man of Rohan, Durnhelm, comes to save his king. Durnhelm, in conversation with the Witch King, reveals himself to not be a man at all, but Éowyn, the niece of Theoden, and a woman of great valor and strength. She hews the head off of the Witch King's fell steed with one mighty blow, and the Witch King is brought to his feet for a final fight.
He
is stabbed in the knee by Meriadoc Brandybuck with a blade from the Barrow Downs, and Éowyn stabs him in the place beneath his crown, effectively ending the contractor of so much pain and torment over the many centuries. In the end, though, Tolkien does write that the Witch King's voice was, quote, never heard again in that age of the world, end quote. So it could be that the Witch King didn't have enough time to recloak, but would have, with enough time. Or he came back in later ages, or maybe he only came back at Dagor-Dagorath, the last battle at the end of times, if the prophecy of Mandos is indeed true.
Okay, and now I'm going to find out why was the Witch King so powerful? Once again, by Men of the West, and I'm very excited to check this out. So let's go.
Then the black captain rose in his stirrups, and cried aloud in a dreadful voice, speaking in some forgotten tongue words of power and terror, to rend both heart and stone. Thrice he cried. Thrice the great ram boomed, and suddenly upon the last stroke the gate of Gondor broke. As if stricken by some blasting spell, it burst asunder. There was a flash of searing lightning, and the doors tumbled in riven fragments to the ground. In rode the Lord of the Nazgûl.
The Lord of the Nazgûl.
Hey everyone, Yoiston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. Today I wanted to look at an interesting and ambiguous question concerning one of our favorite Tolkienian villains. Why was the Witch King so powerful? And to further explore, I want to understand why he was so powerful even compared to the other Nazgûl. Related articles and videos to further expand on this topic may be found in the description and cards. My friends, thank you all so much for joining me today. Let's begin our tale.
Let's go!
When Sauron and Celebrimbor forged the 9 rings for men in the Second Age, Sauron was strategic about which warriors, kings, and sorcerers among men he swayed to his side.
Okay.
We know that 3 of the 9 Nazgûl were Númenóreans, and since Númenóreans were typically stronger and more powerful than the men of Middle-earth, we must therefore assume that the captain of the 9, the Witch-king, was a Númenórean. What's more, it is said that some of the Nazgûl were sorcerers, and Gandalf, whilst speaking to Radagast before leaving for Isengard in the Fellowship of the Ring, said that the chieftain of the 9 was a great king and sorcerer of old, who wielded a deadly fear. Thus, we must also say that the Witch-king was a Númenórean sorcerer of old in the Second Age,
a Númenórean
when he was given
sorcerer.
his ring of power by Sauron,
That's pretty
which
cool.
surely augmented his abilities. With all of this established, we can see why the Witch-king wielded great power, even if the definition of sorcerer is perhaps a bit ambiguous within Tolkien's works. To be honest, the whole concept of magic in Arda is a bit of a difficult topic to understand, which I delve into more in an older video, but if we can assume that the Witch-king already had superhuman abilities or skills before becoming a Ringwraith, especially concerning the fact he was likely a Númenórean, it would also make sense that such skills were augmented after joining Sauron, and perhaps the Witch-king was also able to call and draw upon Sauron's power as well.
Oh,
now, what is a
call
bit
upon his
more difficult
power.
for me to understand is why the Witch-king was far more powerful than the other Nazgûl, which is seen time and again throughout the Third Age, but in lesser and in greater ways. It is said in the Unfinished Tales that the Nazgûl, except for the Witch-king, were apt to stray while alone in daylight, and that the 9, except for the Witch-king once again, feared water.
Interesting. They
These
feared water
mundane
in
differences
daylight.
in focus and fear still stand out as making the Witch-king superior to the other 8 Nazgûl. But other greater examples are out there as well, such as the Witch-king growing to power and earning his name in the realm of Angmar, where the Witch-king was able to grow vast armies, rally the hillmen of Rhudaur, and even send spirits into the Barrow Downs to create Barrow Wights, before going on to take Minas Ithil with the other Nazgûl and make it Minas Morgul, a place of great and evil dark sorcery. Of course, it is also said of the Witch-king by Glorfindel that he would not fall by the hand of man, and while that is subject to interpretation, it still shows an immense power over fate and doom that the Witch-king had. And as this video begins with the quote, the Witch-king also puts incantations upon Grond, allowing for the battering ram to smash open the gate of Minas Tirith. After doing that, the Witch-king, who we must believe was once simply a mortal man, could actually oppose Gandalf the White at the gate directly, which would be an incredible feat for anyone who once called themselves
with power
a
of
man.
Sauron.
And again, we don't see the other Nazgûl being able to achieve anything like this. These are all things that one might expect from a wizard, perhaps, but from a sorcerer among men, even Númenóreans,
like a
turned
mortal
to
sorcerer.
Sauron's cause, is quite strange, especially considering the fact that no other Nazgûl were able to even get close to accomplishing such feats. Perhaps the other Nazgûl had skills that the Witch-king didn't, and we just never saw them.
That's
but
true.
I even find that doubtful.
Oh.
We didn't see other powers wielded by the Nazgûl. Enumerated within the text, they likely didn't have them. Now, let's explore some potential theories and ideas about this concerning the Witch-king. Although I must say I'm afraid that I may ask more questions than provide answers in this video.
That's
First,
okay.
like I said before, magic in Tolkien's works is very cryptic and ambiguous, which is actually something I do quite enjoy.
Absolutely.
It leaves us with some questions.
I
like
hate when
the
things are
ones we trying
too
to answer here
over-explained.
today.
I like when there's
Usually the magic that I
air
can
of
more or less
mystery.
understand is that which is perhaps more spiritual or religious in nature. Take a look at Gandalf or Sauron, for instance. They began as Ainur and became Maiar, the servants of the Valar who were yet of the same race. Their magic seems to be far more spiritual and religious in a sense, as they have closer connections to Eru or God, and the gods or Valar of Middle-earth. So, coming back to the Witch-king, perhaps some of his dark magic, or Morgul sorcery as it is known, stems
Morgul
from something more
sorcery.
spiritual in nature. Knowing
Like
that
a
he was
demonic
both a Númenórean and a sorcerer
belief.
may aid us here, as perhaps those human sacrifices made to Melkor in Númenor in the late Second Age had something to do with the Witch-king, if he was yet in Númenor and he was able to draw dark power from this, or from
Ooh.
Melkor himself.
creepy.
Or perhaps the Witch-king indeed drew upon Sauron's spiritual and dark magic in ways that other Nazgûl were unable to,
Okay.
either by their lack of power or by Sauron's choice to make the Witch-king his champion. Indeed, if we are looking
feel like
at
it would be
Sauron and
Sauron's
his
choice.
augmentation of the Witch King and the Witch King alone, perhaps the Captain of the Nine's Ring had special qualities and was even the most powerful of the 16 rings forged by Sauron and Celebrimbor, 9 for men and 7 for dwarves. This idea of drawing power from Sauron may also be examined in the context of deathlessness especially, as Sauron was once called the Necromancer of Dol Guldur.
Yeah,
We know that
he was called a
while
necromancer.
he was in Dol Guldur, his greatest servant, the Witch King, made war with Arnor far away on the other side of the mountains. And
Right.
during this time, the Witch King sent fell spirits to inhabit the old bodies of Barrow-wights in Cardolin's Barrow Downs. This feels like a very necromantic act to me.
Yeah.
For although these spirits Angmar commanded were not necessarily the spirits of men who should have passed beyond Arda by
Maybe
the
in a
will
way,
of Ilúvatar,
he
they
gave
were still
Sauron
evil
power of
spirits
necromancy,
nonetheless.
and Sauron
it would
gave
not
him
be surprising
powers.
to learn that the Witch King was only able to command them through the powers or teachings of Sauron.
Yeah,
What's more,
yeah.
Sauron prevented the
taught each other.
Ringwraiths themselves from partaking in the gift of men and passing from this world, as their rings of power held them here until the destruction of the One Ring.
Wow.
And we see with the Morgul blade that stabbed Frodo and almost turned him into an undying wraith as well, that this Morgul magic also had power over the fate of death, if even for a temporary time, just as it was with the Nazgûl.
Interesting.
But again, the
Yeah.
idea of Morgul sorcery, while helmed by the Witch King at the end of the Third Age, most likely was influenced by Sauron in some way.
Yeah, I
And then if
agree.
we turn our attention to the incantations of a forgotten language that the Witch King used on Grond, perhaps that forgotten language had power, perhaps that was also something that Sauron taught him, or these spells and incantations were a part of the Witch King's backstory as a sorcerer. It's really unclear, but it's interesting that he had these powers, all of these powers, while the
Yeah.
other Nazgûl did not.
That is fascinating.
Ultimately, these are the ideas and theories I have regarding why the Witch King was so powerful, even amongst the other Nazgûl.
I totally
For
agree.
he must have been the sole champion of Sauron in many ways, one who alone could draw upon greater power from the Dark Lord,
Yes.
either from innate power of who the Witch King was when he received his ring, or by the designs of Sauron.
I think
or
by
both.
the designs of Sauron.
I really couldn't see many other theories being realistic, such as any that connect him to the powers or teachings of wizards, such as the Blue Wizards in the Second Age perhaps, or anything else. It seems that, even as I make this video, many of the Witch King's powers had to have come from Sauron,
Yeah.
or from some dark,
so
similar
similar. Yeah.
realm of sorcery. It's still an ambiguous topic, shrouded in mystery, one of many in Tolkien's works, but I hope
like
this
that.
video and commentary provided some interesting thoughts and reflections concerning the Witch King's considerable
It
power,
did.
even amongst the Nazgûl. But let me know what you all think. Why was the Witch King so powerful? Let me know in the comments below. And so, we come to the end of our tale. From the power of the Witch King, we see that sometimes those who wish for evil upon others will use whatever's at their disposal to achieve such ends. And all we can do is stand against them unflinchingly.
Aw. Okay, that was some lore about the Witch King, which I'm so actually excited that I looked into because I feel like it makes so much more sense that there's almost this control that Sauron has over the Witch King, and because Sauron has limited, I guess, energy and power that he is trying to save for himself to become back into a physical form, he's not going to put it into all the Nazgûl. I feel this is just kind of my speculation, and that he will put it into the strongest, which was this sorcerer from Numenor that is now a Nazgûl that he has deemed like the Lord of the Nazgûl. And I feel like that was definitely a purposeful choice by Sauron, which I think is so cool. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below because it is quite ambiguous and up for debate, which is really cool. So thank you all so much for watching. Please make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. And as always, make sure you comment your suggestions of what I should check out next because I can't wait to learn more. See you!